Hi, guys. I'm not sure if this connection is going to work, and I'm not sure if anybody can hear me. So I'm going to give it a second and see what happens. I was going to take my headphones off, but I can't do that. It is Friday ThoughtFLOW time. We'll give it a couple minutes, but I have got to say, I've not been so excited for a Friday in a long, long time. So let's see if my gimbal will stop pointing out the window and stay on my face. But I don't think that's gonna happen. And here comes Nikki, I think. We'll see what happens. Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Shocking.
I can.
Good.
Okay, yeah, I know I was like flash bombing a bunch of messages. I was cleaning up drywall dust.
Oh, that's
And
fun.
yes, and then not done because of course you have to do the damp mopping. You can't do a wet mop, you have to do a damp mop. And then, of course, the more I vacuumed, the more I was like, oh, it's over here, it's over here. And then I was, yeah. And then I was like, holy shit, what time is it?
I mean, you're talking about it makes me want to sneeze and scratch. So, I mean, that's a lot.
It wasn't a lot. It was, I think it wasn't a lot because it was happening in our basement. And we have a door that we can just close. And the guy, I mean, those walls are smooth. I mean, they did an incredible job. But, the sun was shining just right. And I was like, oh, and I was like, oh, vacuum, vacuum, sweep, sweep, vacuum. And then I went up the stairs and I was like, ah, it's like all over the stairs going upstairs, which means it's in the carpet. So I kind of got a little sidetracked. And then I looked down and it saw that the school called, but it was my son making me feel guilty. He's like, can you pick me up from school or let me know if I'm riding the bus? Because if I'm riding the bus, I have a lot of stuff. It's like, okay, I don't have to deal with that right now.
I mean, I rode my bus with a cello. Kid, pull it together. Life is short. Pull it together. You'll be just
okay. So here's the deal. The seats in the back of the bus, that's really a one-person seat. Well, they have assigned seats on the bus, and they have decided that the Greeks need to sit in that last seat together with their backpacks.
I mean, who makes these decisions?
And they keep sending emails, please have your child sit in their assigned seat. And Aries is like on the bus taking pictures. He's like, Mom, look. And I'm like, yeah, you guys are a little skinny, but I don't think they accommodated for the backpack that is oftentimes wider than the child. Yeah.
I mean, this is the way, we live like animals in this house, clearly.
What'd you say?
No, I'm on ThoughtFLOW and you're sneezing your balls off.
Well, I'm sorry. ThoughtFLOW has too.
Por santo. Ay, Dios.
Who are those guys? Oh my gosh, Harmony, help me out, please. Who are the guys? Who are the two old guys who sit in the balcony on the Muppets?
Oh, that is what's his name? I know them because
I know them too, but it just left my head.
They're the best.
Because I feel like that's who we are, and we should just rename the show to
Right. That's right. Revisited, reincarnated. Statler and Waldorf.
Statler and Waldorf. Yes.
Yes.
Because thanks, Glenn.
Nikki says thank you. It's true. Though he's actually up on the balcony, he could be both of them, actually.
Yeah.
We're more like Kermie and Fozzie.
Thank you, Harmony.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So yes, crisis averted, because when my kid's school calls now, I cannot assume it's the robocall. And I have to actually see what it is, because, there could be, I don't know, anything at this point, because I feel like we've checked all of the boxes of things that happen in middle school. I feel like we've checked a lot of those boxes. So hopefully there's not much left.
I mean, why would you even say something like that? Why would you invite that kind of darkness to your doorstep?
You are correct. Okay. Moving on. So
exactly there. So lots to talk about this week. I feel like we have to start off with South Lake. I'm going to try not to start flapping my arms, but I think that this requires a little bit of a touch base. So as you know, we have been watching the South Lake podcast, scratching our heads and wondering what's happening, what these people are actually thinking in real time. And tomfoolery is where I tend to land there. But further augmenting our point, supporting and then blowing up to 1,000 kabillion decibels is the fact that this week on South Lake, in news from South Lake, one of the administrators says that when you're talking about the Holocaust, you have to remember to give equal time to the opposing viewpoint. Now, I want you to I would like for you to sit and percolate with that whole idea of the opposing viewpoint. Let's give time, hi Tammy, to the opposing viewpoint of the Holocaust. I would like for somebody out there to explain to me how this could possibly make sense in any sort of forum whatsoever. Yes, Karen, exactly. How do you do it? And it all comes back to what we have been ranting and yipping and raving about with this whole, pretending that it's all about critical race theory, something that's not really taught in schools to begin with. When you say something like giving credence, giving equal time to the opposing viewpoint of, I don't know, genocide, what you're doing is saying, we actually want to rewrite the narrative to only suit our point of view, which is what Nikki and I have been saying about this whole conversation from jump. You've got to be careful when you give people carte blanche to eliminate parts of history,
right? Because
they're going to go farther and farther. And thinking farther back than that, what was it? I can't even remember. 25% of millennials don't really know the story of the Holocaust. I mean, this is something that should be taught everywhere at all times. And now we're talking about giving it equal time, giving the opposing viewpoint equal time.
What would be the opposing viewpoint? Is it that they should have walked in voluntarily?
Should they have? I guess it's kind of like donating yourself to science. I don't know.
Right. It's like what would be that, according to the neo-Nazi skinheads, that it just didn't happen, that it's one big story.
I mean, it's not Puff the Magic Dragon. It's not that kind of story, I guess.
So Misty and I were texting about this today, and I kind of rambled on because what I was trying to say was there was a teacher who was yes.
Oh, all conspiracies matter. Good one, Lindsay.
Oh, that might be the comment of the day. What I was trying to say was, so there was a teacher who was like, no, this is not okay. We can't rewrite the history. And so I couldn't get it out in the text message. Sorry. Because I was like, I want to know, which I probably never will, if that teacher was also so giving to fact that when she had an LGBTQ or a brown kid or an undocumented kid, when they were having issues, was she as forthcoming? And because you can't or you shouldn't pick and choose who you're going to support when we're talking about equity and diversity and all of these things. And pretty soon someone is, that argument about the Holocaust and having opposing views, someone is aligning that with equity. We know this. Someone is like, oh, well, in order for it to be equitable, there has to be an opposing view. Well, no, history is history. There is no...
I mean, indeed.
So, but my point was, did this same teacher who may sit in that space as an academic, right? She's an academic. So she says, no, the Holocaust is the Holocaust. This is what happened, not even just from stories that we're reading about, but because there are still Holocaust survivors. And then, of course, there are descendants of people who survived the Holocaust, right? And so she's looking at that and she's saying with her academic brain, there are no opposing views. This is what happened. This is what people have experienced, people who are still alive and well. This is what happened. This is what they experienced. This is what their family and friends experienced. This is what happened. So many people, like the warehouses chock full of Jewish art and people's possessions. And they're trying to locate these people because the Nazi party took their stuff and claimed it as its own. These are not opinions. Like, there are actually places where Jewish families' possessions are being held, and there are people, like, this is their job. Their job is to find the descendants or these people if they're still alive, so they give them back their stuff. This is not opinion. So, but I wonder if this same teacher looked at equity or looks at equity from the same perspective of race and gender.
I don't even think that much into it, because at this point, anybody that's speaking any layer of common sense, that's the start. And
Karen, sweet cheese and crackers.
I love that. It makes me think great googly moogly. I mean, this is what we're reduced to, babbling, because it's so beyond the pale of just dim. I think that when we look at the idea of being equitable, because I do think that that's one of the things I read about that whole discussion at South Lake, was that somebody said, as a result of the legislation banning discussions about history that are race-based or ethnicity-based, they need to present the opposing viewpoint. So yes, it is about equity, but even other administrators in the state are like, that's crap, and it's a gross misinterpretation of what the law says. At the end of the day, it is just another way to whitewash the conversation. And where does it all go back to? It all goes back to the fact that we can't have a true narrative because somebody's feelings are going to be hurt. Well, wah.
What hit? I mean, maybe I'm just being dumb or
Dim.
ignorant. What history doesn't involve race or culture? Like what? I'm literally trying to think of something that doesn't involve.
The history of cheese and crackers does not.
Sweet cheese and crackers.
Sweet cheese and crackers,
And you gotta
yes.
slap your leg. But I'm stumped because I'm literally trying to think of historically, because most battles or conflicts or wars involved one group saying, we're better than you because we're French, or because we're the Portuguese, or because we're English and you're not, or because we want that land and you're brown, aka brown, which really means indigenous, you were here first, and we're better than you because we wear cod pieces and fancy leather shoes, and we have someone whose job it is to dress us. That is their job. They are our dresser. They are our dresser. And we're better than you because you have, you wear sandals and you live off the land, and you don't think that the land belongs to you, but you just think that the land is being giving, and you understand that you have to give back. And so what history doesn't
I just think the whole concept of cod pieces is completely bananas, by the way, but continue.
Because you gotta make your junk look bigger.
Put your junk away.
But I guess it was their answer to the bustle. They couldn't call it the dick bustle. I'm sorry, it's Friday. And,
OMG.
So what history doesn't involve race, culture? What does somebody know? What history doesn't involve? Oh, the dinosaurs.
No, you can't even say that. At the end of it, there's people saying that the dinosaurs didn't even exist because Jesus wouldn't have allowed an abomination to happen like that. So, at the end of the day, you can't win. But this is something that there's actual fact. There are still people alive who can give us eyewitness accounts.
Jesus had hair of wool. We call that nappy. Jesus was happy nappy.
Listen, he looked more like me than he looked like, I don't know, the Viking guy that they show pictures of. But at the end of the day, once again, the person who writes the history is not the person who lost. Now, that said, we should be better than that if we want to learn from our history, which is not the goal here. History is written to oppress. And that is something that we have to really be aware of and we have to own. It's about oppression. It's about keeping the masses in line. One could say the same thing about religion. But at the end of the day, I like to study history. I think there's a lot of good things to be learned just about human behavior, evolution, all of these things. And what I don't want is somebody trying to tell my kid who's in school that, maybe old Adolf was having a bad day. They couldn't get the mustache cut just right. So he decided to kill 11 million people, 6 million of whom were Jews. Do we really want to get into that place? I don't think so. I don't. Tell the truth.
I'm just going to keep throwing just good, funny stuff into this conversation because that show Vikings, not the History Channel one, but the one that's like Vikings. And there's that really hot guy with the piercing blue eyes, or at least they make his eyes look really piercing. Yeah, he's gorgeous. I just wanted to throw that in there.
I don't know this guy, but I will have to take a look.
You just need to Google Vikings, and the guy is freaking drop dead, gorgeous. It's like when you first saw what's his mug on Sons of Anarchy, the
Didn't
lead
watch.
guy. Girl, what is wrong with you? You need to watch it just for the hotness that takes place. So anyway, yeah, there's just like really good. So I'm just gonna keep doing that because I'm appalled that this was our conversation on Tuesday when we thought bombed. It was Tuesday, yes, when we thought bombed, and it was like this standard of whiteness. It just goes back to that. How can we continue to make the blonde, blue-eyed, white standard be the standard? And if that's not in the forefront of the conversation, and if that's not, yes, Harmony knows. Harmony, give me a thumbs up. Is he not hotness? He's hotness. So if you like that sort of thing. But if it's not the blonde, even the dirty blonde, blue-eyed standard, then they want all of that erased. They want that to go away. If you're not talking about, oh, thou exalted on high, blonde, blue-eyed, then we don't want to discuss that in history because it'll take away from the standard that, see, you got to go look him up, girl. Travis
I'll
is hot.
look them up. Travis, whatever.
So, and that's what it keeps, that's what, where all the wagons keep circling back to. When we talk about wealth in this country, you know what they don't talk about? They don't talk about how, so you know that movie Far and Away with where Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman met and fell madly in love, and then she was like, "Oh, you're crazy because you're all Scientologist dude, so I'm going away." That movie is a thing. That movie happened.
100%.
People got to go run with a flag and stake their claim. That is how white people got property. They literally got to just run. And so when you give someone freedom like that, then they're like, oh, look, there's some brown people that were here before us, but they don't have a flag. So we're just going to run over and take that land too. And then they developed armies who supported that.
The army came before, I think, especially in the Midwest.
Yes, but then they begin to you're protecting someone's best interest. We have these forces to protect this people's group, their best interest. But they get to choose what's in their best interest.
Well, and the bar slides.
Right.
And, it's funny that you say that because I was having a conversation.
That's like an MC Escher bar, though. It's not like...
It's like the Winchester Mystery House, where like you go up a flight of stairs and you think there's another flight of stairs, you open the door and there's a wall. Like it's all over the place.
Yes. Yes.
But just thinking about that, it's like this whole thing. We talk about it all the time. I'll keep it quick about COVID, but when we can get a shot, then we'll go out. Okay, so then you can get a shot. Well, that's not good enough now. I don't want to wear masks. I don't want to get a shot. I don't want to, and nobody gets to take responsibility. Like. If you're sliding the bar everywhere, there can be no progress because everybody's looking out to see where the bar is going to land. And while you're changing the standard, people are getting run over in the process by allowing for just random run-amuckery, technical term, to grab land. You're taking something from somebody else. When you are teaching history the way you want it to be taught, you're taking the power of the gravity of that history away from entire people groups who suffered from that. And that's a problem for a lot of reasons. Lessons cannot be learned if the whole story isn't taught. And not from somebody's opposing viewpoint. That's an opinion. If I want to know about history, if I want to know about the history of, maritime laws in the 1800s, I'm probably not going to go to my hairdresser for that information unless she is just really a lover of facts about maritime law. You know, you don't get to have an opinion on something like that.
Right. Well, okay, and so then it's an opposing viewpoint. So that means you have to go find all of the Nazi soldiers who are hiding. They're hiding, and ever so often one of them gets caught or discovered, or so they're hiding, and they're hiding for a reason.
They just found a 90-year-old woman somewhere, I forgot where, and she was like, oh yeah, I'll come to court, and she didn't go to court. And now she's like, oh, I need leniency. Leniency? Are you kidding me? How lenient were you? I don't care that you were a secretary back in 1938 or whenever it was. You were told to show up at court. You still committed a crime.
Right. And so it's like, what are you going to do? Okay, so opposing viewpoint. So then you can't, again, you can't make it up. The opposition in this particular case is the people who were complicit.
I'm sorry. My lips suddenly got really dry. It's all the arm flapping. I dried them out.
But that's the opposing viewpoint, is the other side of what was going on. That's still not someone sitting on a toilet going, this didn't happen because
Why do they have to be on the toilet, Nikki? Why are they on the toilet? They couldn't have been in the sunroom?
No.
You have them on the throne.
It's that Facebook post. It's that Facebook post that I love. There's like this, this doctor or this researcher, and they're in the lab, and they've got their doctor stuff on, and they've got a beaker, and they're doing research, and then the next panel is opinion, and it's this chick sitting on a toilet swiping through. But opposing viewpoint. And so let's bring it down to simple. Like, if you have a debate, there's debate club at school, and you don't just get to show up and be like, yeah, I want to be on debate. I'm good at arguing and discussing. No, to be in debate club, you actually have to research, and what you are presenting is your research. You know what the topic is, and one side is for the argument and one side is against, and each side, your job is to research and support why you are for or against the topic. You don't get to just roll out of bed, put your blazer on with your tie all crooked and be like, so
Chewbacca's a Wookiee.
Yeah. I talked to my friend and he said, that makes no sense. No, that's not research. That's your friend.
But my friend is like really smart, okay? Like, he is super smart.
So I know we're discussing history, but my friend takes AP science, and he's really smart because I know this topic is about history. No, that's what it is to debate. You actually have to have sound research, to the point where the adjudicators, if they are unfamiliar with your source, because you have to present your source, if they are unfamiliar with your source, you have to defend your source. You can't just be like, well, my friend takes AP biology. So no. So even in a student debate, you have to defend where you got your research. Oh, like those people who get PhDs. That's why it's called defending.
Yeah. And it's why you don't just like wake up and get letters next to your name. It's not like,
right.
Oh, the letter fairy came today. It is work.
You have to defend your dissertation. Dissertation, that word is called a dissertation because of the painstaking research that goes in to support what your PhD is going to be in. Hey, Brian. So you can't just, the opposing viewpoint is still not an opinion. The opposing, that's the interesting thing about it. The opposing viewpoint is still from the other side of the people who were there. Those are the people who said, I did this thing. I was Joseph Mengele's assistant. I understand that he had a fetish for twins. He, you know, it's like the opposing viewpoint is still not an opinion. So let's run with that. If you want to have an opposing viewpoint on the Holocaust, then go find all of the Nazis that are hiding in all of the countries. Oh, okay, fine. Tell you what, go freaking watch The Sound of Music. Because a lot of people don't know that's what that musical is about.
Okay, first of all, no. I have seen The Sound of Music one too many times. The Chewbacca defense is my favorite defense, Harmony. You know me way too well. Ladies and gents, if you don't understand what I mean when I say Chewbacca's a Wookiee, you've got to check out the Chewbacca defense. But yeah, you know, and listen, what people don't understand is there was a second part to The Sound of Music, and it gets into the nitty-gritty, sad, grimy, dirty, horrible parts of what all of that was about. Yes. And the kids that played in The Sound of Music had a lot to say about what it was like living the aftermath of that, even, you know, as they got older, and the whole 9 yards. So again, who does it benefit to bring up the opposing viewpoint?
Get that sound working, Brian.
Yeah, you're gonna have to jump out and jump back in, Brian. The opposing viewpoint doesn't, I mean, who are we going to call Richard Spencer and ask? Again, it comes down to his opinion. It comes down the opinion of the right wingers when we're talking about this. But the facts are the facts, and the facts have been laid out, period.
Yes.
It's nauseating, actually. The fact that we have to have, the fact that the Holocaust is up for debate, to me, is aberrant. It says the worst things about our society, period. And the fact that it's all happening right now at a time when, what Nikki just said, we can have a true speech and debate, or we can talk about what Jimmy Blue Balls just told us about over at the cafeteria and frame that as fact. That is crap. And I don't know if it's the whole reality TV part of our society that's going on right now where, you know, fact is fiction and everything's got to be glossy and all of this, but it is a major problem because now, I mean, we're actually rolling backwards in terms of a lot of the progress we've made to clean things up and be more honest about the origins of just about everything.
But it's also what we're discussing too is language and how people are now starting to distort words, because I'm like, opposing viewpoint, I'm like, yeah, that's like a real thing, an opposing viewpoint. And that's why I tried to frame it in, you know, from like high school or college debate, like actual debate teams, right? Because there's a protocol to the opposing view. And I'm like, so are we saying now that people can use opinion as an opposing viewpoint? Like, don't change English. Don't change the English language, because you have opposing viewpoint means something like that. You can oppose something. You know, someone can say, you know, I really like chocolate ice cream and we should always serve chocolate ice cream, you know, at birthday parties. I don't agree with that. It doesn't factor in everyone's taste point. I'm opposing that viewpoint because it really only caters to one person. Well, that's fact. If you only serve one flavor, it's only going to cater to the people that like that taste. That's not my opinion. I don't like chocolate ice cream in that way. That's my opinion. I don't think chocolate ice cream, you know, is the shit. I happen to be a vanilla person. But the fact is, the opposing viewpoint is chocolate will only satisfy a certain number of people because everyone may not like chocolate. Right. That's not my opinion. We've been on planet Earth to know. Look, 31 flavors says it best, and there's more than 31 flavors, right? My opinion is I don't think chocolate is the best flavor. It's not even my opinion to say I don't like chocolate. That's my experience. Those are my taste buds. My opinion is chocolate may not be appealing to everyone. And my opinion is not wrong, Harvey.
I don't like chocolate ice cream either, actually. I could do without it. I don't even really like chocolate cake.
I like Jamocha. I like coffee and chocolate. I like, but it's one of those things that, and that's why I use it as that example, Harmony, because it is so many people like chocolate. I don't even really particularly care for chocolate the way that a lot of people, if there were no chocolate stores, I'd be okay with that. I'm not someone who is like crazy over chocolate. I also don't like roses. I just convinced my husband of that. I'm like, dude, I love that you buy me flowers for my birthday and special days, but I don't like roses. And he just kind of looked at me and was like, what do I do? And I'm like, I like calla lilies. And he was like,
my
what?
Favorite.
That is my favorite
dahlias, but
Yeah. And so I'm like, I really like calla lilies. And he just kind of looked at me and I was like, he's like, can you show me a picture? And I'm like, absolutely, baby. I was like, let me show you what I want. Okay. Let me help you out with my love language. So, but opposing viewpoint.
Look at what you've done. Look at what you've done to Karen. I rude.
Vanilla accepts too many toppings. I like
you guys are a bunch of ice cream bigots.
I like chocolate, Karen. I do, but I'm not one of those people like that's not my candy choice. It's not going to be my go-to candy choice. It's not going to be my go-to ice cream. If there's, I like a flourless chocolate cake because I try to be as gluten-free as possible. I have fallen off the wagon a little bit, but if you put a creme brulee in front of me, well, hot damn.
I'm leaving. We can't talk. Creme brulee is caramelized snot. There's absolutely no purpose. Why don't you just eat flan? Why don't you?
And as we continue to give you the differences between opposing viewpoints versus opinion, what Misty just described was her opinion. You see that? We're good at this. We're really good at this. So, no, I love a Pinot Noir. I do love a Pinot Noir. I do not like white wine, Karen. I'm not a white wine drinker, although I am getting into, but you don't call the rosé Prosecco's, do you? Because there's like a blush Prosecco. I'm new to, what are the Prosecco's? Because they can be white, but they can be, but I like Prosecco.
Is typically white.
White. I don't
You can get a
Prosecco.
sparkling rosé.
Maybe that's what I like, a sparkling rosé, and I do like Prosecco's, but I do not like champagne unless it's really amazing champagne that I cannot afford. I like the champagne that I cannot afford.
I'm feeling like, Nikki, our relationship needs to end now.
Whatever.
And goodbye.
You know what? And that's Misty's opinion. See, look at her. Look at. We're giving you all these examples of an opinion versus an opposing viewpoint, just so that you're clear. So yes, I love a red. I love Australian Malbecs. Yes. And yes, and Argentinian Malbecs. They can be tanniny, but Argentina and Australia have found a way to really do a nice blend in the Malbec, so it's not so. I love a Pinot Noir.
Chilean whites, Nikki. You should try some of the Chilean whites. They are superior. Okay. I don't think any white out of Napa is worth my taste buds or my calories. But the Chilean whites, man, damn.
Okay.
Harmony's, she's had it with you and your opinions. But Karen thinks that we can still be friends, which is good.
No, I like gelato. No. I like gelato. I do like gelato. I absolutely like gelato. And I tend to keep it simple with ice creams and gelatos because a lot of people throw
Spanish reds.
once you throw like cookies and other things, Spanish Reds are amazing and they're fabulous, and they're all the reasons that you go to have a Spanish Red, and it's not something that you find, you know, it's different. It's different. I do like an Oregon Pinot Noir though. I do like an Oregon Pinot Noir. They are nice. I don't know what's going on up there, you know, in the upper West, but those Oregon Pinot Noirs. So yes, I do like wine. See, look at all those opinions that we just gave you. Very different than an opposing viewpoint. So these are all ways Misty says we're rolling backwards. Look at that. That might be an opinion.
But you also did a nice job of dovetailing us backwards. Kudos.
I say that a lot of people are acting like crabs in a barrel. And that's what happens when you feel like you're losing something. A lot of the way that people, you know, Texas is a great example of how to act like a crab in a barrel. Because they do things, the government in general does things against their people, but Texas really goes, what is it that everyone doesn't want? Okay, let's go do that. Oh, yeah. We want to run our own electric. Okay, yeah, let's do that. We'll make the people pay for it. Oh, look, we don't have any electricity. Oh, we're not tapped into the grid. Oops.
And we'll make the people pay for that too.
Oh, and our system is completely antiquated. Oh, oops.
Still paying. People still paying, but people still supporting. Listen, at the end of the day, can you blame the government of Texas for what it's doing? If they continue to win, then there's no deterrent. It's just like anything else. You know, you can sit on your couch at home with your gelato, but definitely not your creme brulee. But if you're in Texas, you can have creme brulee because I hate that stuff. But you can sit on your couch and then you can say, oh, well, I really don't like this. I really think that we should be on the grid. I think we should do a better job of educating our children. But if you don't act to do it, then people are going to keep running roughshod over you.
Yeah, because isn't it in Texas where they no longer teach in their science books the Big Bang Theory?
I actually think that's either Kansas or Oklahoma. It's that whole thing about, it's not creation justice, but it's something like, you know, it's a combination of the creation and the evolution theories.
Not to be confused with critical race theory.
Which is clearly an opinion, according to these people.
Because we're developing all of these theories, these opinionated theories.
Right, right. But this is also the state in which the majority of their history books until 2016, 2017, spoke to the theory of slaves coming over, you know, looking for a better life. So, I mean, when we think about it that way, now remember, this is the same state that was against critical race theory. You know, this is what they're teaching.
So the slaves came over of their own
for gelato.
For gelato. They came over because they wanted to hang out with Christopher Columbus because he made gelato.
And this is how opinions go amok and how opinions can be turned into facts.
They volunteered to come over. They volunteered to come over. And they volunteered to work for free. And they decided that their own work was so negligent that they then told their bosses to beat them because they weren't doing good work.
I mean, of course. And to feed their babies to alligators and all that. I mean,
we don't have enough of a workforce because I don't know what's wrong with those other people on that other continent. They don't want to come over and work for free and get their asses beat. So please have sex with as many of our females, regardless of age, as possible, so that we can make more of a free labor force for you that you can be.
Yeah. I mean, it's perfectly logical. Kansas. I thought it was Kansas. Oh, no. Rejects evolution. Yeah, that's right. That's Kansas. Yeah. For sure.
Because, those dinosaurs, those bones are a conspiracy. They're not real.
I would love to be able to say, oh, you know what, this level of stupidity will just eventually be bred out. But what we're seeing is that this is not the case. When we talk about things like the flat earth theory, which is actually gaining traction, we can't just allow things like this to continue because it's not going the right way. And this is how you end up with, we need to teach the opposing viewpoints to the Holocaust.
So, because I have to throw a joke in. So my son joined a flat earth group, blog, whatever, group people. And he got kicked out. Because he kept asking where the edge was.
I mean, is that a bad question? Where is the edge?
And he said no one would tell him.
Well, did they have the answer?
No, they kicked him out of the group. I was like, dude. And he's like, Mom, I made up a name. I'm like, don't be giving people you know the rules. And he's like, Mom, I just kept asking them, well, where's the edge? Where's the edge? Because I want to see the edge. He's like, we want to take a family trip to see the edge. Can you tell me where the edge is?
Well, I mean, that's not really open-minded of them. If we're supposed to engage opposing viewpoints, I mean, and why hasn't Bezos seen it? Like, he went up to space just now. Should we call William Shatner?
Yes, he's going, isn't he? Isn't he?
I think he went. I think he went yesterday.
Oh. So, yes. So my son kept asking where the edge was, and they kicked him out of the group. And he's getting older and he does these things, and I cannot rein him in because, quite frankly, it's just hilarious. And all he was asking for, here, wait for it. He was asking for proof. He's like, tell me where it is. Tell me. And he's, this is not with smiley faces or LOLs. He's like,
oh my God. Harmony, I need you to summarize that and put it in the chat, because I want to know what Pac-Man has to do with not falling off the edge of the planet. Maybe it's like the go around the bend thing, but I need to know. I'm so intrigued.
Yeah, it's something, I believe, because I think Aries was telling me about it. I couldn't hear anymore because I was like, I can't do this. I'm like, because, the whole, we started, or the earth started, what is it, 10,000 years ago?
I think it's 5.
5. Oh God. Wow. Okay. So the earth started 5,000 years ago. Hey, Misty, we can even split the difference and say 7,500. The earth started.
I mean, facts don't matter. So, hey, Aaron.
Hey, Aaron. Yes, Aaron, we're right. You just jumped in. Earth started 7,500 years ago. And we are currently looking for the edge of the flat earth. We're looking for the edge so we can all take a road trip so we can see the edge. Yes.
But here's the thing about this, though. This is an interesting junction of how this randomness came together. Oh, so we're now down to 2,000 years ago. Can I get 1,500? So a person I once knew was a member of a cult, like a churchy cult. And
I like that, the cult.
I didn't have any other word for it. I believe in creative language. So I remember the first time she started telling me about her cult and how she wanted me to come with her to a service. Now, anybody that knows me knows that I'm allergic to religion in general. Though there are some religions that I can appreciate and others that I cannot. And one of the things that she told me was that, there were no dinosaurs. This is a false flag thing. Scientists make bones and stick them out in the dirt for people. Of course. But, the whole story was that the planet was formed inside of a firmament, and then like Adam, Eve, the snake, and apple, all this stuff really happened. But the actual real dinosaurs were there, but they hung around with Adam and Eve. They were chums. Like they had a pet brontosaurus and all this stuff. Anyway, these two ding-dongs pissed off the Lord, and he broke the firmament, and there was a flood, and Noah was a real thing, and all of this stuff. And anyway, it all culminates to the fact that the religion, all of the things that we need to do is basically to keep the Lord from getting mad at us and doing this again. But included in that is also this idea of flat earth. And, if you see how all of these things weave and bob into and out of each other, Nikki fell on the floor. How all of these things weave and bob in and out of each other, what we do realize is that, one, it's really easy to sell snake oil if you're really good at it. I actually think that if I really, really want to make some money, I should open up a church. But, allergy, same thing. But I also think that when we continue to give air to nonsense, and we have people that are looking for something, anything, to rescue them from their personal doldrums or whatever it is, it's very easy to start to sway people into the halls of nonsense, which is why these alternative viewpoints, as I think it was Harmony, yes, just put into the chat, are really, really important to quell. We can't as sane individuals allow things that are so ridiculous to continue to breathe air, because eventually they can become dangerous. It's my thought anyway.
I also think that it's really interesting that, when you think about cults and cholts and different, you think about the age range. We know that indoctrination into a lot of these different alternative viewpoints starts in, it starts in the home. But, that's why a lot of cults really attack college campuses. And it's because it's that time when, kids are in that space, and they're really, really opening, they're really allowing their own viewpoints to come into play. And it doesn't mean they're not doing that in middle school. It doesn't mean they're not doing that in high school. But we know that college campuses are breeding grounds for things like this. And what you then tend to find is you start hearing all of these stories where everyone's writing a book about, I know there's one out, the guy was a neo-Nazi, and he pulled himself out of it, and he writes about it, and he writes about, as much as he's writing about his own story, what you read about, I started listening to it on audiobooks, and then I went over to Huey because I was having a moment. I was like, I gotta get some Huey Newton. But you hear about, he speaks about the indoctrination. You really hear in the story how they feed you just a little bit, and then they feed you a little bit more. And then they this isn't like you walk in and someone is like, put this swastika on your arm, wear all black, get you some paratrooper boots. No, that's not how it happens.
It is a long haul.
They are committed. They know what to say, when to say, and how to say it, just to draw you in, and just ease back, draw you back in, ease back. And then you're also dealing with minds that are really just that frontal lobe, man, that freaking, Neanderthal frontal lobe that kids don't have. It doesn't finish until, they're in their 20s. And they are so prime they are so primed for suggestion and anything that makes them feel whole, validated, wanted, needed. And we have to think about that, because
We do.
that's the driving force, and that's what you see. That's what we're experiencing when you're like, why are these babies out here? Because if you're like 22 years old, you're like a baby. Why are they out here? Why don't they know better?
And you have to look at the fact that when we talk about what happens in school, you know, what happens in K through 12 school, nowadays, you know, we're not fostering creativity and wonder and curiosity. We want these kids to follow the straight and narrow path to taking tests. Hi, Everly. We're still here for about another half hour or so. Good time to come in, though. You can join my chult. Hi, Robin. You know, when you teach people not to be curious and then you hang on them the need to follow certain ideals because I said so, whoever the I is, whether I is school or church or whomever it is, soccer coach, what you do is you diminish their agency. They're not able then to say, these are my own thought processes that I'm going to stand by and support. And so they're looking for something as an anchor. You're going to tell them they have to attach themselves to this whole way of being until they're seniors in high school. Then you send them off to college where no one's wearing pants and everybody's high or drunk or worse, and say, figure it out on your own. No wonder why it's a breeding ground.
And when you take away that's empty perspective. So when you tell someone, you need to do this because I said so, you need to feel this way, you need to act this way, you need to think this way because I said so, you remove other people's perspective. You remove their ability to, so you sit down and, you know, you tell your kid, draw this picture. Draw this picture. Everybody, 10 people in the room, draw a picture of the sun. And you get 10 different variations because people view drawing the sun. Somebody's going to put, make the sun have a smiley face and some rosy cheeks. And some people are just going to, it's not going to have that. And some people are going to put blue clouds by it. Or you put a picture in front of them and you say, draw this picture of the sun. You're still going to have 10 renditions. But what you do is you pigeonholed everyone into saying, they're going to try to draw that picture of the sun. And they're already going to, some people are going to feel a sense of failure because it's not going to look like that drawing. And you've already pigeonholed them into a standard that at some point they may not be able to attain. So they're constantly on the hunt, the chase to attain this standard. That is impossible because it's not those hands drawing it. It's not that mind. It's not that hand-eye coordination. Yeah. And that's what people do when you pigeonhole a perspective. And when you don't get a child, you don't give them a sense of, I say this all the time. People used to come up to me and they used to be like, you give your kids a lot of freedom. I didn't think they had freedom. I just
oh my
was
God,
like,
your
well,
kids have so much freedom. I mean, I'm like, she's like, at 7 o'clock at night, oh yeah, the kids are riding their bike down my mom, I had no freedom. I was like, Mom, I just want to ride my bike down and go get some ice cream. She's like, no, there's kidnappers, there's rapists, there's terrorists, there's bumblebees.
I started to realize that we do, but they also understood the consequences. It's like there are rules. Like the older kids are not allowed to leave the house without their phones being charged. Now the carry dad says 80%. Because I guess one time somebody went out and it was like 50. And he was like, how's that work? Because in a minute it's going to be less than 50. So now they know. And before they even, they're like, yeah, we're going to go outside. Like phone's at 80%, and they're holding it out with the big battery bar. And bye, Erin. Thanks for joining.
Bye, Erin.
It's they understand, and they understand that the parents giveth and the parents will snatcheth away. And it's not a question. Or if they're out, they'll say, hey, we're at the park behind the house. Can we be at the park behind the house? We're back in the neighborhood, but can we be here? They communicate, they text, it just happens so freely. But we kind of worked for that, and they have,
right.
We did. It wasn't just like, I don't know where my kid is, because yes, we look at the child molesters, and everybody knows when you look at your neighborhood on that map, all the child molesters are on the outside ring. They're not in the ring, but they're on the outside ring. And they do have to go grocery shopping. We remind the kids, you guys, they don't stay there.
There's no invisible force keeping them in the yard. They're not vampires,
they have to go
and they're
to
not
the grocery
witches.
store. Right. They have to go to the CVS or the Walgreens. And they were like, oh yeah. I'm like, yeah, they don't just, that's where they live. So our kids do have freedom, but they have to honor it. And when it gets taken away, trust me, they are wide-eyed, and they're like, yeah, okay, yeah, we felt that hurt. Ooh, wait, still got a little bruise from that one. We got snatched back. But we had a conversation with them the other night, and I said, I want what you think these standards should be. And we asked them about cleaning the house, and we asked them about their rooms. And they came up with some really interesting, they were fair. They were like, well, we don't think our room should be clean to your standard, because you guys have pretty high. And they said, and they were honest, and they said, but it could be better than what we've been doing. We could raise our own standards. And I said, okay, write down what, yeah. And I said, write down what your standards should be. What do you think your room should look like if your room is clean, based on the standard somewhere in the middle of, and it was like, they were like kind of getting all into it, because they had to admit that, they were like, well, there's actually kind of no standard right now. And it was, I was like, no, you guide this conversation. I was like, there's no right or wrong. And we just did that for all of the household stuff. It's like, no, what is your perspective? And they were like, well, if one person leaves this here, and then another person leaves this here, now it's not like one thing on a counter. It's like all of a sudden everyone has left, and now it just looks like a bunch of stuff. And they're like, but it's really everybody's stuff. And I was like, let me pour my wine, because
win. Yeah.
And so we have conversations like this with our kids, and they are annoyed by it. But I have to tell you that it has yielded there's some fruit, and it's, there's some little berries starting to pop out. And these conversations are important, because you do have other people who, they go to the dollar store. Our kids are very infatuated with the dollar store, and they do sell dollar box candy. But they'll say, like, like one day the lady made them leave, and I was like, why did you leave? What were you doing? And they were like, dang, we were doing. And I was like, why did you leave? What did she say? What was going on around you? And they were like, no, we moved away to another aisle, because there was this other aisle where a bunch of people were gathering, just too many people in the aisle. It was really a COVID thing. And so they said, we moved to another aisle. And I was like, what did you do? And so the next day I said, go back to the dollar store and see if she asked you to leave. And so they went back, and they were like, no, it was fine. And I was like, okay, so I'm not going to go, because they understand how they have to behave in a store.
Right.
And they
correct.
do. And they understand that it's not just about their behavior. It's how they will be perceived. And that's a privilege for them to jump on their bikes and go down to the dollar store.
Right.
And I'm not going to get into an argument with some little old lady because you have a perception of my brown kids. I'm just going to snatch that privilege.
Well, but it also comes back to critical thinking. You've established the ground rules. This is the way it needs to be if you want to maintain this privilege and maybe survive the rest of the day. And then now here's the rope. You decide what you're going to do with the rope. I think that's really, really important. I think that, again, I think we have to make sure that we're not allowing our kids to be indoctrinated into this perceived standard for what society should look like.
Yes.
Because that standard is very, very slanted in a way that really doesn't benefit anybody.
Correct.
But it especially doesn't benefit people that are technically on the margins.
Yes. And I realize that my kids do look around to see what is going on around them. Like, and sometimes they'd be like, are you paying attention? And then they'll come back and they'll say something. And I'm like, oh, okay, they're totally paying attention. And when you pigeonhole your kids into a certain perspective, they don't look for anything but that perspective. And that's how you get these clumps of people who you're like, why do all of these people think like this? They've been indoctrinated into it. And for my kids, their bio dad and I made a conscious choice not to introduce them to religion. We are not religious people. We are both spiritual people. All of the parents, the 4 parents are spiritual people for sure. But we made a choice because to me and to the other 3, religion is just that. It's a bunch of people with the same perspective that doesn't always lend itself to other people's perspectives. And that would be me forcing that on my kids.
Agreed. That's the way I see it too. I don't have any right to tell him, Harrison, what his viewpoint should be. If he decides to find religion as an adult, then that is something that he has found on his own, based on his own moral standards, what he believes should be happening in this world socially. I don't think it's right to push that onto people. And I know so many people that call themselves Reformed, fill in the blanks, Catholics, Protestants, whatever.
Right.
And, they're still shaped, and sometimes in a negative way, by those religious experiences that they had. I didn't want to do that to my kid.
And I want that frontal lobe. I want them to be able to go into that choice with eyes wide open, and not because they grew up with me saying this is what it is.
Right.
I want my kids, and I just keep saying this, I want my kids to be good people. I want my kids to see someone who needs their help, and if they're in a position to help, and that just happened with us. And I'm incredibly proud. I'm just going to keep saying I'm incredibly proud of the way that my son handled this. And there was never a time where my son said, I don't want to go to school because all hell's breaking loose. And, he would have been justified in that. In this particular instance, I'm incredibly proud of the way that he handled himself and supported someone else who really needed his help. And he was okay with that. And I asked him every step of the way, do you want to do this? Okay, now we're at this step. Do you want to do this? Okay, now we're at this step. Yeah, I'm very proud of him. And that is what I want my son to be. I want my son to do, he's not doing so well in Spanish right now. We got to get a Spanish tutor. And I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. Because you were a really good person. You did good people things. You had some good people skills this past 2 months. So you get A for good people skills. That we're going to put that right there next to that Spanish grade and get you some help for your Spanish.
Right. I mean, those are the things, those are the lessons that I think are really important. And so then when we look at these ideas of, alternative opinions or whatever it is, getting back to what we were talking about earlier, when you give a person the skill to think critically and make their own decisions based on whatever their moral compass is, there's a lot less worrying for us to do as adults down the road.
Yeah.
We've got plenty of things to worry about. So take that off the table. But 2, I believe then they're less susceptible to alternative facts, which are really just opinions of people who are just haters or whatever it is. I think that it's so important, because when they can recognize a wrong on their own, they can do something about it. There's about to be a whole lot of noise. Hold on. Can you hear me?
I also, this is a thing. And I also, told my kids to mad strengthen their pituitary gland. And I say it that way because I think it's funny. And because I'm like, no, I told my kids to, like, you be in charge of who you want in your space. But I've taught my kids that from birth. I was like, if my kid doesn't want to hug you, then they're not going to hug you. Like, no, I don't believe in that. That's strengthening your kids' fight or flight. That's strengthening your kids' spidey sense, their sixth sense, however you want to call it. And people shut that down. Because
kids are supposed to be seen and not heard, and they're supposed to subscribe to whatever the rules of the room are. And then you're surprised when they start taking drugs or whatever it is. If you tell them to follow, they're going to follow.
Or if you shut down, which is a very common thing in boy children, you tell them to man up, or you tell them not to feel all the stuff that they're feeling. That's a very common thing. But girls can cry, and I'll be like, girls, stop crying, because it's not that serious.
Just stop crying. For fuck's sake, stop crying. Why are you crying?
Because it's an over dramatization emotionally, or that you can use your emotion to get a result that you think you should have, not the result that you should have. And I am calling it an over dramatization on purpose, because you diminish how male children should feel, but you allow female children to be all, and it's like, no, you didn't make it on the cheerleading team. Suck it up. I don't know why you didn't make it on. But
again, it fosters the stereotype that women are weak and can't handle their emotions. Telling women that it's okay to cry and telling men that they're not supposed to only reinforces the patriarchy and, what their goal is. So you can suck it. I'm not all about that. And I really think that it's important to let boys in particular find their emotional center, whatever that is. Some of them are going to vibrate a little higher than others. There's all kinds of studies showing that circumcision also can affect how boys handle emotional drama, trauma, outrage, etc. That's important too. So it's really important that we allow them to develop their own emotional basis and stasis as soon as possible, and then support that.
Yes. And so these are all, so I refer to it, to the biology of it, right? To the body. And I'm like, strengthen your pituitary gland, feel what you need to feel, but, understand why you're feeling it, but don't over dramatize it. And so we have what we've just discussed, two very real things in terms of how women are perceived and how men are perceived, or how they are. One could just say that this is how they are.
Right.
But, and maybe men feel that women over dramatize everything because men don't get to feel the feels that they need to feel when they are, if you fall and scrape your knee and it hurts, well, gosh darn it, you get to cry. You get to cry because you do have blood gushing out your knee. Oh, okay, cool. But it's okay. You're good. So these are things, this doesn't start. None of this stuff starts when you turn 18. You don't turn 18. You don't figure out all the hormones. You don't get a $40,000 a year job and a condo and a car. These are things that we have to think about, being sensitive. It's why men are so, I think men more than women, it's why they're so against men being gay or transgendered male to female. It's like it's an affront to their manhood. Well, it may be because they may not understand where their manhood is. That it's all up inside of their skin and don't have nothing to do with what's going over there. And that's...
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it, to be honest. And again, if we're expecting all men to fall into a certain box and react and act a certain way, then anything that steps outside of that norm is a problem. And again, supports the patriarchal standpoint of this is the only way to be.
Correct.
I was reading something the other day about how hard it is for trans folks of any direction to manage their medical care because of all of the prejudice and preconceived notions from medical doctors.
Yes.
And
yes.
again, we are in this situation because Western society has decided that we have to live everything in a binary sort of way. It is a huge problem because everywhere you turn, you can see that the binary approach is a failure. And yet, here we are reinforcing it, desperately trying to claw back to the place where we can make it make sense. And these people are good and these people are bad and all of this stuff. But again, how much better could it be if we let people be who they are? And if somebody posts something about pedophiles, I will reach through this screen and we will have a moment, because that's always the argument that people go back to. And I say that actually answers my point. Like, you have to go.
I don't even understand that argument.
It's just like anytime somebody says, oh, well, if you support gay rights, then you're supporting pedophilia, which, I mean, if I like squirrels, then I can't like snakes. I mean, what does that even mean? Chewbacca is a Wookiee. It's a non-argument that is so shocking that it shuts down the argument because it comes from a basis in nonsense.
But it also doesn't even explain male to female pedophilia. Like, there are men, there's a lot of men. There's a lot of men who just like young women, period. There's a lot of men who just like young women. Someone posted on Facebook, and it was literally a list of all the men in entertainment. And I didn't even know that about Prince. The grooming that happens.
Listen, don't get me wrong. I love Jeff Goldblum. He is the biggest geeky dork. I love him so much. He's
gorgeous. Yeah.
Love him. And as he gets older, he's like a fine wine, but not from the Pacific Northwest. Fine. I love him. But his wife is like 12. And it's just weird for me. But you can have your 12-year-old bride. But why is it, again, when we turn it around, a woman is a cougar. She's all of these things. You know, why is it that women don't have value as they age, but men, you know, they age like fine wine? It's because it's crap. It's what we're told to believe. So,
and there, you know, there is a thing, you know, there is a thing where I'm like, but you're not in the same place. If you are 30 years older than your spouse, to me, you're just not in the same place.
Well, of course not.
You're not in the same place. Mentally, you're not in the same place. And I'm not going to, you know, people fall in love. I'm not going to do this thing. People do fall in love. And you know, May, December, or whatever they call it. People do, you know, but there is an acceptance in this country that men, and white men especially, can have these younger, you know, this one is a lot of people don't talk about, but she was emancipated. Brad Pitt dated Juliette Lewis for 7 years, but she was 21 when they broke up.
Is that right?
They were she was young.
I know they were together for a long time. I thought she was older than 21.
If she was, it was just a little bit older. But Juliette Lewis was a man.
We need you, Harm.
She was in her teens, because Juliette Lewis was emancipated when she was 16 or 17. Juliette Lewis was a whole different beast, because she came out the womb grown. But,
with guns. I love her.
Right. She was
late 20s.
Yeah. Yeah. She was emancipated when she was 16 or almost 17, something like that. She was definitely emancipated. Yeah, they were dating before that. That's when they admitted to dating.
As she was, as that may be, though, 27 to 17, A
It's
man
10
at
years.
27, yeah, but a man at 27 is like 23 to a woman. And I feel like, especially if she was emancipated, she lived through some stuff. Like, I don't know. I don't.
No, but you understand what I'm saying.
I'm
They
much
leave, that
more
one gets left out a
critical.
lot.
I'm much more critical of a Courtney Stodden and that old troglodyte that she was with, because she was clearly young between the ears, and she was, I mean, in my opinion, she was trafficked by her own parents. But I think that when you get into an older situation, a 30-year-old woman and a 60-year-old man, still kind of weird.
But at
But
least
I
she's
think
an
that's
adult.
okay until you get to the point where one is taking care of the other, and that's when things go sideways again. I
Yes.
think it's a slippery type of
But
slope.
a 30-year-old is an adult. You're talking about men. That list was shocking to me.
I
Like
didn't read the whole list, but some of it
Anthony
was a bit
Kiedis
sketchy.
and Ione Skye, Prince and Mai Tai. I mean, it was, you know, you're not, it's still an acceptable, it's acceptable in this country. You know, it's very, and it doesn't mean I understand that.
Is it acceptable only if you're the man going backwards? It's
No,
not
that's
acceptable
what
if
I
you
was saying.
reverse
And
it.
I went a step further and said white men. And for the record,
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman is married to his step granddaughter.
Morgan Freeman is problematic for a lot of reasons. But if you're a Real Housewives of Salt Lake City person, that Mary Crosby person, who also runs a cult, by the way, she is married to her grandfather. Her grandmother promised her to her, or told her that she had to marry the grandfather. And when she did that, she got power in their family Pentecostal church. This is like a whole thing on this show. This is why I watch this show, because it's the most bizarre shit I've ever seen in my whole life. Morgan Freeman's been old since birth. Tasha.
He was
right.
speed reader, Tasha. He was speed reader. He wasn't old then.
Yeah, you know, I think again, like that's just weird to me. Your grandparent, like,
yeah, someone that you saw in that space, someone that you know what I mean, like someone that you saw in that space. So it's all of these things where it's all of these things where you, back to what we were talking about, you teaching kids to honor their space, teaching kids to get that spider sense up and running so that they can avoid potentially traumatic circumstances. There's not going to be, you can't protect yourself from every situation. You can't.
No.
But it's, when we gave our son permission to defend himself against this kid who was harassing him at school, it was like he went, oh, I can do that. Yes, baby. Because we can't be there with you all the time. And it's like him being able to shift, this person does not have power over me.
Right.
Him being able to shift to that, he goes to school with this level of confidence, and I have stopped asking him how is school today. It's got like a little twinge to it, because you can't just be like, how was school today? You gotta be like, how was
just
school
waiting
today? And I've stopped doing that, because I'm like, good Lord, he's, I'm throwing vibes at him and he doesn't need that.
Yeah.
But that's an important thing. You have to let people stand in their power, and you have to let people, and that's on purpose, when people pigeonhole their kids in one lane and they're like, no, this is the way you're going. That is all on purpose. And then those kids leave, or they meet someone, or they go away to college, or they have an experience where they go, oh, wait a minute. So
Well, I want
things
to talk
that make
about
you,
one more thing before we shut this down.
mm-hmm.
The Bruce family.
Yeah.
So you guys, I don't know if you remember, we talked about this. I can't even remember when we talk all the time. But at some point over the summer, and there's a family there's a Black family that owned a hotel and property on Manhattan Beach in outside of LA. And this family was stripped of their property because white people said so. And finally, and when we talked about this, there was a lawsuit by the descendants saying that you have stolen generational wealth from us. We want it back. And we believe that it would be worth $75 million.
Yep.
And so, you know, the local town was like, hey, we understand that this is a wrong, but how
Don't
could you
make us
possibly
out.
hold us responsible for this? We're not racists. We have relatives that may have been a part of this, but we shouldn't be held responsible. Well, the court actually said that the family should get that money. And that is a huge deal. It comes back to the whole idea of what reparations could, should, may look like. And there's 100 kabillion ways to make sure that people get what they're due. And
the town took the land, citing they were going to use it for public use, and didn't do anything with it for 3 decades.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, they still benefit. The town benefits from having a public beach, period. It's a draw. People come, people spend money there, all of these things. Meanwhile, these descendants are living in poverty, literal poverty, when they could have had that opportunity for financial growth going along. And so it has to be said. And you know, and the reason why it's so important, if you dovetail back to what you were talking about earlier, what we were talking about when we were talking about Jewish families whose antiquities, whose art, all of these things were stolen from them during the Holocaust, and how there are commissions actually out there looking for these families to restore these items to them.
That is their job.
It is so important that they get these items back to these folks. This is no different. When you take somebody's property, when you deny their descendants something that their family members have worked for years, that has value, that has a cost, and that needs to go back to the people who were robbed of their property.
That's
And
Tulsa.
So
there's some white
Tulsa,
family where
Rosewood.
there's some heirloom that has been handed down generations, and they stole it. The women of Tulsa reported seeing white women walking around in their garments, wearing their jewelry.
Can you imagine the insult of that? Can you imagine what it's like for what it had been like for this family who was in this area, who left the Plains states somewhere, I believe, to go out there to build because they knew that they were safe to do it there, and to have it stripped away, and oh well, so sorry, we needed it. So to me, it speaks volumes, and it also shows that it can be done, because at the end of the day, they didn't give the property back. They gave the cash value. So technically, the city or whomever it is can still continue to raise money, whatever it is, off of that land. So everybody wins.
I think they should have given the land back for exactly the reason that you just said. I think it should have been both. I think it should have been a dollar amount,
I don't think that's
and it should have been. And so this is what happens. And this is what happens, and we're not going to get into it, but we might discuss it next week. This is what happens when white people decide how reparations. They're still trying to get theirs, while they took something away. you can give someone $75 million, and that's not an amount to laugh or joke at, right? That's a substantial amount of money. But you took away their right to earn that money and the future earnings of the land.
Yeah,
See the
sure,
difference?
but I get it 100%, but at the end of the day, you can invest that money,
Absolutely.
give yourself a stipend, and never worry about it again. And I
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
that's at least a start. That's not like I'm
Yes.
giving you 40 acres and a mule, but that's on top of a mountain where you can't grow any food, you can't sell it, and you can't do anything with it. So
It's me, Misty. My headset just died. It's me.
No. Mine just crackled too. Mine's about to die. But at the end of the day, it's an opportunity where the opportunity was due. It's a start.
Yes.
I think it's going to be landmark, and I think it's going to keep going on and on, as long as people keep going along with it. What Allie said here, she thought they gave them the land back and the monetary amount, but the family decided to rent it to the county. Now that could be it. And that's another great way to do it. Make them rent it, make them continue to pay rent, whatever it is, keep it going.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, we need to keep this conversation going too, because, I like to talk about antiquities and all the other things that have been stolen from folks. So next talk for next time, I've got to go terrorize some bodies.
All right.
But everybody, thanks for coming to play today. Chocolate ice cream is still a hard pass. But, if you got vanilla and some sprinkles, it might work out for you. That's all I'm going to say. No Pacific Northwest wine. And everybody have a great start to your weekend.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.